As always, I'm thrilled to be reading with you.
Are you okay? Well, woke now?
I've been woke for a long time, just
But
not
are you
awake.
awake? Yeah.
Maybe a small, but look, here we go. No, but welcome, welcome.
Hi, Kim.
Hello.
Are you going to come on video or just?
I can't right now. I'm working, but
No.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, thank you for coming in, even though you're working.
yeah, it's my first time, so I'm curious to see what it's about.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
Well, we'll do that when we were, starting.
Hi, Dion.
Hi, Dion. Do you recognize?
I do.
Dion?
Yeah,
Okay.
from other events,
Okay.
other
Great.
meetings.
So, Kim, is this your first time on any Earth Regenerators?
yeah, it is. I just finished the book last week, and so I went on the website and I was like just checking everything out and just kind of learning what it's all about and what's out there.
That's really great. Turns out this particular meeting seems to be one that attracts a lot of people who are new. So it's a great way to kind of ease people into the great variety of things that are going on within the community. Shane.
Shane.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Hello. So,
Yeah, I have not read the book yet.
Well,
I haven't read it myself either.
it's a challenge in some respects, but it's also really very profoundly satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aweed,
Hello.
good to see you.
Hi, Jonathan. Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll wait a couple of minutes for
A couple more people to.
well, if other people are going to join. It's great that you guys are here on time. Does someone want to share something in the meantime? We will go around the room and
Yeah, invite people to kind of check in and just kind of say a little bit about who they are and what attracts them to this.
Yeah.
And,
one of the things we could do, Jonathan, is talk about the various ways we run this time period. And because we're a pretty flexible group, we can choose how we want to spend the time. So, Jonathan, you've been in most of them, or if not all of them.
Right. Well, first of all, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Possible Planet, which Victoria and I co-founded. And here's RJ, great to see you. We were just starting to do check-ins, and I was starting to share a little bit about what I'm doing here, inviting others to do the same.
Good.
So
that's what we're doing. We're doing a check-in now instead of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just to give a little bit of a context, our nonprofit has become the fiscal sponsor for Earth Regenerators as a community and for Barichara Ecoversity as a project. And it's something that we're really thrilled to be doing. It really kind of gives a lot of substance to our idea about Possible Planet. And this particular conversation started from a comment that Victoria made during one of our other sessions, saying, given what Earth Regenerators is up to, it might be great to have a conversation about what is it that people want in terms of a right livelihood. Well, I went doing a little bit of research and came up with some stuff. And so that's what you've seen posted on the website, on the ER website. But really, it's a very open-ended conversation for people to share about what they care about and for others to share about their ideas and how the transition, which in a sense all of us are engaged in on the planet these days, from the machine civilization that's really dominated history for the last 500 years into something we hope will be very different. So I'm in terms of just today it's a kind of a nice, cool fall day here in the land of the Haudenosaunee, which includes the Seneca people, the Onondaga, and we acknowledge this as the unceded lands, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share this. So that's my check-in. Want to go next, and then we'll
So-
pass it around.
And what do we want the check-in to include?
Well, just what you're bringing to the session. I mean, how you're
Okay.
coming in. Sometimes it takes people a little bit. They want to say, you know, I had a great day today, or I had a terrible day today, and just to kind of get that
Okay,
off.
so we're not introducing ourselves like
so
from a
much.
career type, you know, like
Right.
what do we want to do and all.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Victoria Zellencloud, and Jonathan and I have been together for almost 40 years.
Believe it or not.
And yes, we are married, yes. We have a wonderful daughter, and it was my birthday yesterday, and our daughter and son-in-law had such a nice call with us. So, and we just came from a pretty good meeting that is forwarding our work. So I'm pretty alive and excited about finding out about you people and, you know, sharing about myself to whatever extent. So Kim, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is my first sort of foray into the whole group. I finished the book last week and just came across the website, and I'm super curious to hear what this is about and kind of meet like-minded people. And
And you want to pass it on to someone else?
sure, the next person on my screen is Dion.
All right. Well, yeah, here in California. I'm just starting my career, hopefully in sustainability, and really just in a networking phase personally. Got a kind of a generalist perspective at this point in my life. You know, I was an athlete, studied urban planning, you know, interested in technology and how it can or cannot be used well. Yeah, just looking to observe different perspectives and really just kind of open my mind as much as possible. These days, I just had a great networking meeting with a former high school friend who's going into chemical engineering, you know, working with kind of sustainable materials. And, you know, so that's just one topic, you know, as related to kind of regeneration or, you know, climate action, those kinds of things. So anyways, that's where I'm right now, and just looking forward to hearing from everyone else. How about RJ?
Thanks, Dion. Yeah, I'm thinking I here in northeastern Pennsylvania, land of the Lenape, the first peoples, although over the centuries they were pushed out of Pennsylvania, although many are still here, not as the formal tribe, unfortunately. I retired at the beginning of the 21st century and was able then to spend all my free time to do what I believed in, which is basically what we're talking about here, regeneration, and feeling that sustainability was not enough. It was great. We'd been doing a lot of it, but it was not enough for where we seemed to be headed with many things in the 21st century, primarily a continuation of the 20th. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. We started a nonprofit, small international nonprofit back in 1992 to work on small projects around the world. And our intent was we would not become a big organization, nor would we locally take money out of it. We wanted the money to go, or money in any form, to go to the projects around the world in small communities. So that's the direction we've gone, and we've never had to take a salary. So that's great. And as I said, once I retired, that allowed me to do more things, and found Earth Regenerators within the last year, and it's one of the best, if not the best out there as far as connecting. So that's my quick check-in. I've been married for 50 years, 51 years now, and we have 3 sons, all grown. So, yep, that's not a requirement. Thanks. Weed, I think if I pronounced it right, I'll go to you.
Yeah, you got it, RJ. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm out here in the land of the Kumeyaay, sort of the Pacific Southwest of North America. And yeah, it's been kind of cloudy all day, but the sun is just starting to poke out from behind the clouds and kind of filter in through the window here. It's a family of quails that usually visits us every day, and they've been kind of tottering around the yard all morning. So it's been fun watching them. Yeah, just excited today to have some conversations and gain some new perspectives about what right livelihood might mean. And I have Shane on here next.
I love the question, what right livelihood might mean. I think that's what we're all doing here. Okay. Sorry, I can't seem to work out how to. Oh, there. You can see my pretty face now. My friend here was probably prettier. But... So I'm Shane. I'm in also the territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral peoples, in a little triangular-shaped bit of land nestled between 3 Great Lakes. So my watershed is the Grand River, and I was spent a good piece of this morning a little south of here, not far from the Grand River, but at the northern edge of the Carolinian forestry zone. And I was collecting hickory nuts. So my home is in Kitchener, which is, I don't know, it's a 20-minute drive perhaps north of there. And there's no hickory trees in Kitchener. And I don't really know why. There's hickory trees and a few woodlots that I've spotted around the place. But so I'm giving gifts to the squirrels with the idea that we could repopulate the forest of central Kitchener, should perhaps society collapse and humans disperse to the countryside. Then the trees can take over this bit of land, which seems to me like a little bit of an offbeat but regenerative project. And I'm also quite into native plant gardening, which I suppose that's the same thing, really. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how to manage right livelihood and what it might mean. And this is not my first time in this space. And I run a little renewable energy co-op. I manage this, so it has the feel of right livelihood, but my heart is much closer to those hickory trees and actually like helping the forest extend itself into this realm that humans have done so much awful work in. That was a lot. Hi, Kath. You want to introduce your cat?
Kia ora. Sorry for being late. What are we doing?
Check-ins. We're doing check-ins.
Yeah, just
Okay.
around the check.
Do you have a check-in prompt, or should I just say how I arrive?
Just tell us how you're
Okay.
getting here.
Okay, I'm utterly distracted with puppy sitting, as you can see. So this is also the reason why I'm late. So I'm sorry for that. Other than that, what am I holding here today? I'm curious about, everyone's right livelihood. It's good to see you again, Dion, and Avid. I think we've seen each other in the project incubator last week, and Dion, you were in the listening circle or learning out loud, if I'm not mistaken. So it's nice to see you all and be with you. And yeah, I have a puppy, so I'm really distracted. I guess I just want to listen today. Who hasn't checked in yet?
And Cass, just tell people where you're from.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. I'm in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in Te Whanganui-a-Tara, which is a Wellington harbour. And I'm playing and learning on the lands of Taranaki Whanui, ki Te Upoko o Te Ika. And it's actually ceded land. So they are the kaitiakis of the land, the stewards, and it's in their ownership, which is pretty amazing. Originally, for everyone who doesn't know, I'm from Germany, which you might have heard from my accent. So I grew up in the suburbs of Berlin. Yeah, I don't know who hasn't gone yet. So
Well, just Andy,
put
I
it back in the middle.
Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You're
Over to you, Andy, across the ditch.
Across the Tasman Sea. Yeah. I'm Andy. I'm here in Tasmania, Lutruwita, Tasmania, on the unceded lands of the Muwinina people, Palawa speaking people, and in the watershed of the Northwest Bay River in southern Tasmania, just near Hobart. And yeah, it's a grey all day today. It's very misty out there, and feels slow and damp, and yeah, it's fairly early in the morning, so I'm just kind of arriving into the day. And yeah, I'm in a bit of a listening mode too. I think I'm just really curious about how other people are feeling about right livelihoods, and yeah, it's becoming ever more important subject to me. And so yeah, just bringing a lot of care and wanting to support other people in their bringing out their right livelihoods. And so
Well, that's really great.
that'll do for me.
Thank you all. So one of the things that strikes me is how many of us are on this kind of quest as you know, I'm an old white guy, to find our place in the world and acknowledge our ancestors and the former caretakers of these lands that we occupy. And that in itself is a challenging thing for many people to do. And it's, but it's remarkable that a lot of the people that we interact with, certainly in Earth Regenerators, but also in many of the other networks, for example, here in the Rochester area, we're part of something called the Pachamama Alliance of the Rochester area. And for those of you not familiar with Pachamama, it grew out of communications with the Achuar in Ecuador, I believe. And really the central message is that humanity needs to wake up from the dream of modernity and realize what we're doing on this planet. And so for many of us, right livelihood means getting back closer to the land and closer to where we can get our own hands in the dirt and find a way to live perhaps more simply, get out of what used to be called the rat race. I'm not even sure what the current phrase is amongst the Gen Zers, but it's been a long journey for us as well. I started off actually probably my so-called career going to the University of Wellington in New Zealand and getting a degree in psychology and sociology, and expecting fully to become an academic for most of my life. And got a scholarship to go to Canada, which was kind of unusual. And out of graduate school in Canada, got recruited into the Canadian government. So I spent almost a decade as a public servant in the dim, dark days of the 1970s under the regime of Pierre Trudeau the first. And it, you know, sort of shaped my way of looking at the world, and also led me ultimately to rebel against the system enough to be kicked out, and then had to find my way as an entrepreneur. And I did that by starting off building passive solar homes and solar additions. And it was quite a wrenching change because I'd been an academic and I'd been a government civil servant, and I never lifted a hammer. I had absolutely no clue how to build anything. So I worked out a deal with a couple of guys that I would go out and market our services, and then I'd work alongside them until I knew what I was doing. And so that's how I got started in my right livelihood journey. And I thought it would be great to invite others to share, those of us who've been doing this for a while. And also just, you know, last week as we were talking about this, Victoria somehow raised the issue, well, how about instead of our soul searching and individual self-examination as to what we ought to be doing with our lives, we actually invited the community to say who we are for them, who am I for the community,
Who are they?
or who are they for the community, what does the community want from us, and can we provide that? And I thought that would be a great way to
And
start off. So.
the assumption was that people would say, these are my skill sets that I enjoy using, not the ones that you don't enjoy using.
Even if you have them.
Well, I mean, sometimes they come in handy for some things, but what you would like to be doing and where you've been, what industries, you know, and then what you think what you think a right livelihood would be and what your challenges are. And then we could, you know, people could, you know, have a conversation to develop what is the world needs these things. You may not know that. Not everybody knows what the world needs, you know, and that could be very revealing for a person who's looking and who might be, you know, only having this kind of a worldview, very small or relatively to what else is there. And all of these people in Earth Regenerators have so many divergent experiences and have and understand the sustainability or regenerative nature of those. So that can be very helpful to somebody who's looking, you know, for what's next for them, or where do they want to go? Where do they want to direct their career so that they can have a right livelihood? Not everybody needs to earn money, but a lot of people do. And so that's a big part of it. I think that's one of the reasons people struggle a lot. You know, they know what they'd like to do, but they just don't know how to earn an income from it. So I wondered if somebody wanted to start and try out this new, somebody who's really looking and struggling, you know, what they would like, what they could do that would be in service to the earth, and really use who they are, what they're capable of, so that we can give as much as we can, because that's what people want to do, and whether you need money for it. So somebody want to volunteer for that? Ideally, somebody who hasn't been, you know, I haven't been in all the sessions, but we want to give people a chance that haven't taken advantage of that yet. First of all, is there any questions? Is that kind of clear, or would you like to do something different?
Seems clear to me. I could take a shot at it. You know, I'm very early career, kind of feel like no career yet, but yeah, so I had kind of three things. What are the skills you enjoy using, where you've been already, and what you think a future livelihood could look like? You know, I've really tried to envision my future and think about what my skills are, past successes and what that meant. The skills I enjoy using, one, I was, early life was an athlete. So I'm a very kinesthetic person in general. And I've coached sports, but I have a seemingly, very different interest in the sustainability world. So, I think those will probably unify in some ways in the future, but I'm not really sure what that will look like. But what I take from that is, teaching. I really enjoy teaching. Certainly with athletic things, I could really embody the experience and explain it to people very well, and I'm very empathetic in that way. To what learning is like for people. And early in life, I really struggled with not feeling smart enough in school, or just feeling, I was a very active kid, kind of distracted. And so I had this tension around academic, the academic environment. So I left school feeling less than in some ways, but I knew I was capable, so I'm deeply empathetic for people who feel like they aren't learners, or they're not good at math, or they're not good writers, or they can't draw. I think those are all just self-limiting beliefs. They're not true, so yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that. And this recent conversation I had with a friend, she reflected back to me that it seemed like I was excited about education, which feels weird, being young and like I don't have enough knowledge to teach something, or I don't have skills to teach others, but it's more of a skill that I could develop in the future. So that's kind of what I would say about the first point. Where I've been, my last most serious job, or kind of only serious job I've had, was just working at an electric bike company, communicating to customers about their broken bikes. So I was like a remote bike mechanic, which was difficult because I had to coordinate. But I think I excelled at explaining issues to people, over the phone, and really working through a bent chain or something, random issues. I left the job just because it was a frustrating environment. I felt like there wasn't good communication, things like that. But yeah, that's where I've been. I mean, the other only serious environment was kind of collegiate track and field in Tucson. I think, Weed, you were in maybe Arizona area. I don't know. I love Tucson, but anyways, that's kind of the first 2 points. I don't know. I don't want to say too much here, but
One question I have, and thanks for filling in, because it's not just skill sets, it's kind of like who you are, how you occur for other people, like what they say about you, that that you own and you love. And you've said a lot of that. What ages do you like to communicate with? Do you have any preferences?
Well, I mean, I know that I really maybe shouldn't have preferences and try to communicate with everyone. But I mean, last couple of years, it's been really limited during COVID. And, mostly people around my age. That's easiest. I would say it's most natural. I was playing disc golf, outdoor sport, with people mainly my age and things like that. And other than that, I have I'm living with my family now, so that's kind of the only exposure I've been getting. So I think there is a social crisis in general. A lot of people are finding it difficult to connect, right? So I visit my grandmother recently, and she's very isolated. There's no connection to young people at all. And so I hope that's an answer.
Yeah. It occurs to me also, just to point out, that in the crisis that we're in, which is social and ecological and just about everything else, that the need for education is extraordinarily strong, and for people to get to learn about what's happening on the earth. So if that is a direction that appeals to you, that's really a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful opening, and who knows what that could lead to. Andy.
Yeah, I just I felt a desire to speak to something you said, Dion, about not feeling like you have enough say depth of experience to teach others. You know, it's a common feeling, and I think I want to give it you know, its due at the same time as wanting to, I don't know, just a desire to dismantle that idea a little bit, because you know, it feels to me that the person, you know, the people that you would like to learn from are not necessarily, it's not necessarily obvious. It's not like when you go to learn something, what you need is, you know, about who you are and where you're at that moment. And sometimes I had a kind of awakening to this like quite a few years ago when I was learning to build from a neighbor of mine. And I'd basically, it's sort of similar to Jonathan. I'd been a sort of an academic sort of type person, very creative, mostly about writing and, you know, and that sort of thing. And I suddenly switched to, you know, homesteading and kind of like just trying to make everything for myself. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a friend who was right next door. You know, we bought the property next to his place, and he was a, you know, great friend, and he'd been building, and in a very similar situation. He'd been, you know, he didn't know what he was doing either, but he was like 2 or 3 years ahead of me, and that didn't make him any kind of expert, but it made him the perfect teacher. Like it was, he had so much insight into what exactly as you described, into what I needed as a learner, because he'd just been there, you know, and a lot of empathy for what I was, you know, experiencing. And that experience kind of made me, I realized that I wouldn't have gotten that from, you know, a seasoned master builder, you know what I mean? And then years later, I was listening to a podcast and listening to some guy I'd never heard before talking about his experiences with, like, I think he was talking about an indigenous peoples somewhere, and I can't remember who they were, unfortunately. But he mentioned that that the education of young children was done by older children, and I found that a really fascinating. At that moment, I kind of went, ah, yes, because it's like the older children can feel into what the younger children need so well. It instantly made sense to me. And the idea that you needed to be an expert to teach someone, or that you needed to have sort of real depth of experience, just sort of fell away. And it was actually that, oddly enough, that was actually Joe. It was Joe Brewer who had said that, and I'd kind of completely forgotten about Joe until years later, and I just sort of got in contact with him, like, you know, heard more from him, and I was like, oh, that's the same person as I heard talking about that. Anyway, it's just still one of those coincidences, but yeah, it feels like there's an unlearning that needs to be done around the idea of teaching, and those are just beginning ideas about it. But I feel like what you said, Dion, about being highly empathetic and being able to see into what people need to learn, it's just a powerful, potent kind of skill. And I think it's more interest passion, commitment, and an experience of learning something that matters more than than any kind of sort of expertise. Or I mean, I guess that's kind of obvious, but it's it feels like it's something we need to that we a sort of a pretty big unlearning thing from modernity that we need to do as a community. And I've been learning particularly from Kath, that there's a way of just launching into a journey you want to take, and that in itself is a getting on the road to something and being committed to it is enough to invite people in, and it's the sort of, it's more than the sincerity of your heart that matters in that, in that situation. I think I think I'll leave it at that. That's probably a bit of a ramble, but I hope it makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think just to add to that, one of the big discoveries in my life was how much I learned from trying to teach others about subjects that I was just, barely getting to know, because it really forced me to get much deeper into them and to really find ways to communicate and and to address the challenges that other people had, really led me to address a lot more of my own challenges. So that's a really interesting idea about having older children teach younger children. It's
And,
also,
yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
great. I think one of the things might be that after someone like Andy shares, we let Dion, because we've never done this before, but what does that bring up for you? As possibilities and other things you want to add. How about that?
Yeah, well, I know the kids I coached, who are, I don't know, six years younger than me, really resonated with me a lot. More the other coaches were, much older than me, and you just want both. You want that diversity. I mean, I think it's just this universal concept that diversity is strength, and you want the spectrum of human development really to be supported at all ages by people of those similar ages. Criticism of traditional education is segregated ages by grade. It's easy to analyze that in an Excel sheet, of this age did this, but you're ignoring the spectrum that's required for kind of holistic learning and development. So I deeply resonate with what was said.
And Kim is new to this. So Kim, the way that people get into the conversation is, do you know where the reactions and raising your hand is?
Yes, I do.
So you know where that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, that's how we know who goes first that wants to talk. Sometimes it's just free flowing, but once it gets going, then we want to really get some order to make sure we don't leave people out. Well, I do have a couple of thoughts. And one is, given we're mostly talking about the earth and sustainability, and that really does encompass a lot of ground. Sustainability in doing less bad in the corporate world, you might say, and regeneration is actually designing with whole systems in mind that includes nature, which includes people, and the natural world, and looking for a win-win for all of that. And the world is coming to where we kind of, in earth regenerators and looking at regeneration, are seeing things, but there's still a whole lot of work to be done in doing less bad. So there's two resources, and I do want you to say what you think has more power, land, food, water, energy, like you may be drawn to things already, or you may say, it's so shallow, I'd really rather learn about many things before I set on a path. And one of the ways just struck me there's a series of daily webinars called Humanity Rising. I don't know if you found that. But there's a couple of things like that where people have either daily or weekly said, you know, I'm going to pick people who are doing some new things, interesting things, and give them an hour to talk about what they're doing. And places like Humanity Rising, and if you can't find it, just contact Jonathan. I can find it. They'll usually say the topics. So you just look down the topics and you start sourcing that way. You know, what are these things? And then you can listen as much as you want because they're all recorded. There's something called Sustainability Now that we participate in on Thursday nights. And they bring a movie or an interview and then we discuss it. So there are things like that. There's also a site called 80,000 Hours, which you may know about. I've never really been to that site, but it's all about, hey guys, if you want to make a difference in the planet, there's a lot of careers that you may not know about. You've got 80,000 hours in your work life. What are you going to do with them? And so I believe you can find it just by looking up 80,000 hours. And if you can't, I get their emails. And I'm kind of a career change, you know, maven. You know, I've always been into career change. I've done many myself. And
Some of them involuntary.
some of them involuntary, yes. Yeah, I found out I have ADHD a couple of months ago. And all of a sudden I realized now I know why I got fired from those jobs and why I did really well in those jobs. So, you know, that's always helpful. So have you and other people may have other resources that can broaden you and give you that kind of perspective that you were looking for. But is there something that you know draws you?
Me specifically?
Yeah.
In terms of resources?
No. In terms of where your career or your future might be.
Focus.
Where your focus might be.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I was, you know, a little frustrated with the degree I got. It was, it's called Sustainable Built Environments. And you go, you know, what's the definition of built environment? It's like anything we do in the world is built, right? You know, any change that we make. So super broad. You know, I learned about wastewater treatment and transportation and housing and, you know, just all these things. And so I'm constantly juggling all those concepts and they're kind of all interesting, you know, so I may just need more time. I mean, it's a lot of content available on the internet. And I've been learning how to handle that, creating systems and a practice completely separate from the internet of how to really center and see what resonates, you know, in the realm of kind of, following your interests. You know, sometimes it feels like I am obligated to learn about economics. I'm obligated to learn about biology. I don't have time to do all these things. And so I'm trying to just focus on what resonates most with me and what my brain maybe is oriented toward. If you had something to say, RJ.
RJ.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll just throw in a thought of my own experience, which might be relevant. I realized fairly early on, and I did a lot of athletics just because I had all this energy and I loved the sport. And I realized very early on, there were so many people out there in any sport that I went into who were ultimately much more accomplished than I was, but I could get by in almost anything. But that realization that I didn't have to be the best at anything, I could follow what really drew me, what I really enjoyed, and not be overstressed at not becoming perfect at it. And I think probably I've lived most of my life that way. And because I'm so curious about everything and I see everything in a relational way, the best thing I found was just to follow that interest. If it went off in 10 different ways, look at those 10 different ways. And maybe that's why I've felt for a long time, I'm very interested in learning, have always been interested in learning, but realized that I could never be a classroom teacher. I just need that feedback. I need that constant feedback. And if I'm with a group, I get that feedback constantly and I can interact and be helpful with it. And I've known some great teachers who can stand up and lecture for an hour and you learn so much, and they're able to do it in that classroom group. That is not me at all. But what I found is, because I believe in people so much, that everyone has particular talents that they have not fully explored or fully developed as far as they want to go with it. And that's how I learn actually from others, is seeing these other talents that are out there and knowing that, oh, I don't need to know this, but somebody out there that I know knows how to do that. And we mentioned a little bit about building, and we have a group here called the Natural Builders Guild, and they only build with local wood products and the old natural ways. And that brought me back to when I was a kid on the farm, seeing the same type of building. And I realized, yeah, I can do that. There's always somebody who knows the techniques better than I do. If I can stand alongside with them and I can help hold the beam or help carry this, object or whatever. So I've just found that to be very successful. And when I look at, for me, when I look at Right Livelihood, or as was said, and I don't remember the exact terms, but what is the community looking for that I could offer? That means that I usually just barge right in with my interests and realize I have to shut up at times and just listen. But that seems to help. And so that's where I'm at. I would certainly encourage anybody to follow what they find that they love and take it as far as they want to go and see where else it leads to. Because I think over time, that's what happiness is to be able to be responsible and curious and helpful in some way. So that's just my 2 cents. So when I see, for example, there's someone in their 20s or 30s, I think, gosh, I wish I had another 50 years to explore what they're exploring. So that's my 2 cents. And thanks.
Yeah, we
Dion, do you want to respond or do you want to go to Awid? It's your choice.
Oh, go to Awid, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So this could be kind of a response to Dion, although I know, like, I've been to a few meetings the last few weeks, and sometimes I felt like as a newer member, I'm like, oh no, the whole thing became about me. So I like keep you in the spotlight unless you're finding it really helpful. But sort of based on what you said and what RJ said, it's just kind of something occurred to me. Like I grew up culturally as a human with a penis in America, and I was like pushed aggressively toward sports, and like later the military, and everything was really focused on the physical. And I still enjoy using my body, but I sort of wish that like somebody when I was young said like, oh, what about some of these other things? Like, what about art? For example, and now I find that I'm really kind of awakening to my creative spirit. And so I was just sort of wondering, I don't know, for you, Dion, or you, RJ, or for anybody else, was there kind of like a niche that you were like put into growing up, and then you had to like find something else later on? Maybe you didn't find it till you were 50. You were like, oh, this thing, like I wish somebody had led me to this earlier, because now it's become this really important thing in my life. Just kind of wondering if anybody has had an experience like that.
I have, a bit. Sports never, I didn't feel pushed into it. I just enjoyed moving, and I was climbing things and jumping over things, and it just turned into track and field, high jump and triple jump and long jump and hurdles and pole vault and javelin. So that was fun for me, and I don't, the collegiate machine that really hurts a lot of people. I have opinions about, but I had a hip surgery at 18 years old, and had a recent re-injury of my hip, and so that's been difficult, and I think that played into kind of being pushed into this very industrial system of schools want their athletes to perform, to make the schools look good, and those kinds of things. I think we could maybe make a system more around play instead of competition, certainly. But yeah, I definitely had time to do artistic things as well. But yeah, the sports thing did dominate my life, and at the end I really wanted to get away from it for a while, and I've had to take a big break, and now got into more play style things, like animal locomotion. I don't know if anybody has heard about that, but doing something like a bear crawl is really engaging, but it is not a sport. It's not competitive. You don't need to win it. Those kinds of things. Yeah.
And likely the Bears would win that one, right?
Yeah, humans are generalists.
Yes.
Bears specialize in that.
Well, this is really a wonderful and rich conversation. I just wanted to add one more piece to it, which is that one of the things I've discovered about Earth regenerators is an interest on the part of many members in this community to begin to pool some of their resources to be able to support people doing this work of stewarding the earth. And maybe just because I'm the fiscal sponsor for some of this, I'm kind of focused on how we bring resources to bear on this. And turns out, first of all, Joe Brewer is a master at Patreon and crowdfunding. Has done some extraordinary things, and I think ultimately will be quite successful in some of the things that we're trying to work on together, raising money for territorial landscaping and things like that. But also, I've been deeply involved with a couple of people on the development of something called Vivero, which some of you may have come across, which is a way for members of Earth Regenerators to contribute into a fund that will support other Earth Regenerators who want to do things and that are really considered by the members of the community to be extraordinarily valuable, and yet don't often find a way to do it, and find themselves stuck in whatever kind of occupation they've just learned out of necessity in order to keep food on the table and pay the rent. So it's still at a very early stage, but it's always been a dream of mine to find a way to engage people in the real work of the world that's needed, and to find a way to support them in doing that. So I just wanted to kind of presence that as one of the undercurrents that I find in Earth Regenerators that I find so exciting. So
yeah, if you find something you want to do and there's not an income stream that you can see, then the Earth Regenerators Fund, if you were to apply to it, you might be able to get some kind of stipend, that would take care of your basic needs while you learned and did, pulling grass on a mountain to make have the river come back, and learn all those things about how that works. So, that's amazing. I wanted to suggest two other things. As I said, this is kind of a hobby for me, career change and doing stuff like this. There's a process that many people probably know and do. I learned it from this book called What Color is Your Parachute? And they keep putting out, they probably have a 2022 edition, and I probably got mine in 1970. So it's been a long time. But the fundamental thing is informational interviewing. And so what I would, if you're not familiar with it and somebody else might not be, it's really hard to figure out, like, how do you learn about something? You don't want to always go to the internet and learn that way. Some people learn better in hearing, I do, in a conversation. So the way I've always found jobs is to figure out what I wanted to do in general, and then go and find people who are doing it and call them up and say, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm pretty good at finding some way to get them to say yes, because most people love to share how they got to where they are, what they like about it, what they don't, what it's like to actually work in this industry or this field. And you will gain so much more than you will just from reading on the internet. Not only that, but they usually have a huge respect for you, and they can see how you operate. And generally they will refer you to somebody else, you know, who may refer you to a job if they don't have a job, you know, as long as you make sense. I'm not asking you for a job. What I'm doing is learning. So please just, you know, get that. If you feel like referring me, fine, but I'm interested in what you do and how you got there and what it might mean for me. So that's always just so valuable. And one of the people there's a guy here in Rochester who started this nonprofit called Rochester Ecology Partners. And he had been a teacher, I think, and during COVID, he might have lost his job, and he was married and had children, and he needed to have an income. And so he started this nonprofit teaching kids in the inner city about gardens. And, you know, he just started doing it, and he got grants locally, and he got stronger. He got a great board of directors. They got connected, and the guy's been hiring people. You know, so you could start as a volunteer and then eventually you get hired in these kinds of organizations, so many of them. So if you ever wanted to talk with him because you think, you know, like, I really love, you know, to do something like that. How did he start, and how can I find people in my area or something like that? So
yeah, we'd be happy to connect you, and he's always really open and friendly.
he is, but in your area, you could find the people like him
Yeah.
and just go and talk with them.
Mhm.
Nonprofits and for-profits. So, and you might look for co-ops, you know, they're probably few and far between, but if you like that kind of thing, you might talk to people in those kinds of situations.
Now, did you want to say more, RJ? Because your hand is still up, or is it just you forgot to put it down?
So Dion, how about if you kind of like say anything you want to say, and then somebody else can volunteer? Does that work?
Just to be in the warm seat, as they say.
Yeah. Has it been helpful? And, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, lots of, you know, I just took some brief notes and things to think about. And yeah, I appreciate that. You know, just bouncing ideas off and you know, hearing some similar threads. You know, we talked about being a generalist, you know, chasing your strengths in more of a positive psychology sense. And yeah, I'll you know, check out those nonprofits. I have been doing informational interviews.
Okay.
As you know, I really just started doing it. I think I had a lot of fear. I really, even before COVID, I just felt pretty isolated and had just fallen into that based on, you know, living with my family right now, and all my friends moved away, and just all of a sudden I had no community, and it was very difficult. So now I'm just diving into networking, you know, using LinkedIn and you know, all that stuff. So trying to talk in person with people as much as possible. And but yeah, thank you so much. And I'd be glad to move on to someone else, because I feel like I've been.
By the way, Jonathan always automatically records these things. He doesn't ask. If anybody has a problem, we can turn it off. But if you wanted to listen to this again, you know,
Sure.
And he'll be able to find that.
Sure. Thank you.
Andy.
Oh, Andy.
Yeah, I was just curious what people think of the idea of careers. I guess I sort of got to a point personally where I sort of realized that I probably wasn't going to have a career, so to speak. That in terms of right livelihood, I actually needed to stop thinking in terms of, available jobs and, pathways in industries and that kind of thing, because it's, well, I guess it's just the sort of the recognition that systemically that it's all problematic for me. Like no organizational path. I started to see that no organizational path was going to fit with me as a human. Like, and which is why I sort of, one of the reasons why I embarked on creating my own and niche, and I'm still working on that. But yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, that's not necessarily the same for everyone. And maybe there's a blend that's entirely doable. But I wanted to sort of like put that reality in there, because I think sometimes it is a very strong reality for people that there's just not going to be, a career path, that allows you to feel human and yes, it's all right. That's probably enough. I'll stop speaking. I feel like I'm going to start rambling.
I can really relate to that because, one of the things I discovered at some point was that I don't do very well in organizations. So even though I might have been willing to jump from one subject matter area to another and go find another job, when I did find jobs, I wasn't really a great fit, partly because of being kind of a rebellious and, sometimes outspoken person where I shouldn't have been, maybe. But, what it led me to was a real sense of the importance of entrepreneurship as a way to approach the world that, and I think, originally we all were entrepreneurs. Maybe that's the way to look at it. And nobody ever had a job doing something for somebody else. I mean, not that you wouldn't work for other people, but the whole idea that you would sign on to become a machinist in an automobile, assembly line and do that for 40 years and then get the gold watch, and that was somehow doing good by your family, just never worked for me. I guess I got fired from jobs, not because of ADHD, but just because I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
So who would like to go next? Kim.
I actually just wanted to kind of add on to what Andy was saying, and actually Victoria and Jonathan too, is like I tried the entrepreneurship route, and for me that didn't work because I don't like selling myself. I don't like having to market myself. Like that was the part that I disliked, but I loved the idea of having more freedom to do the things that I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And so over the years, I've tried lots of different things like you, Victoria. It's just like I like the variety of different types of work. So I've done everything from IT to photography to website design and whatever. And that's what's kept my interest. But I don't know, the path has been super windy and super all over the place. But I've managed to kind of like find a decent place to be right now. But the more I learn about kind of where the world is in the state that we're in, the less I like the work that I'm doing, because it's very like corporate focused, and the clients that we have are just so against what I believe in. So that's where I'm really struggling right now. But so yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
We.
Oh man, I love this conversation so much. Thank you, Andy. I Yeah, thanks for your thoughts in the chat, Dion, and for your words, Kim. I'm right there. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm sure some of you have read Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, kind of an old cult classic. I haven't reread it in a while, so I have to see if I find any of it weird now. But sort of one of the basic concepts for anyone who hasn't is like, yeah, work is a fabrication, and like somewhere along the line, well, really by degrees, like the necessities for life were locked up, right? Like the food, the water, the land, like access to resources to put a roof over your head, something to do with your poop, it's just like these basic things that have to happen were locked up behind a paywall. And the deal we got was like, you can have them back if you work for us, whatever us means. But yeah, that really hit me so hard the first time I read it and allowed it to sink in. And that's been a few years now. And I've been trying, okay, so like, then what do you do with that? Especially if you're in an urban or suburban context, you're like plugged into all the infrastructure, right? You can like be the change you want to see in the world all you want, but like you're plugged into the gas lines and the water lines and the electric grid, and you got to go to the supermarket to get your food. And you can make some of these things a little bit better, but you're fundamentally plugged in. And it costs money just to exist. And if you try to just exist on a piece of land without permission, somebody will come and kick you off. Maybe they'll throw you in jail for it. Maybe they'll shoot you, So it's like, how do you begin to think about like, what would it mean to be allowed to exist somewhere, at least for your physical body to exist somewhere, and start to reclaim this sort of basic birthright of access to these necessities. And I feel like there are so many cool ways of doing that now. And I'm learning about a bunch of them just by attending these Earth Regenerator meetings and checking out some of the resources that are talked about in these calls. But yeah, I'm right there with several of you on the career stuff. Like, I'm not looking at that at all anymore. I have no desire, no intention for a career. I'm not looking for a job, an employer. I'm looking for a piece of land where I can find a way to be allowed to exist and focus my energies on first just having access to those basic necessities for life, and then it's like put your gas mask on first kind of thing, or your oxygen mask on first, and then assuming that can be figured out, like, okay, well, like, what else is going on here? Who else doesn't have access to these things? Who else is still sort of plugged into the system and can't get out? And like, how do we transition to a more communal thing? And that's where like all of my energy is focused these days. So I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but it just hit me really hard as this was being talked about. So thanks for bringing this up.
And that's, really one of the things that I have an enormous admiration for you, because not only do you want to do it for yourself, but you want to make it possible for other people. And so Victoria and I have a long background in the eco-village movement, but I think it goes way beyond that. And so I'm really excited about your ideas and where that's going to lead and who it's going to help, as well as you.
Do you want, by the way, to be the next person that we do this with?
Well, he's got some ideas as to what he's going to do.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's fine. So Andy, but you can't.
Awid, I just wanted to say, yeah, I resonate with that really strongly. When in my early 30s, when I was homesteading, I ridiculously ambitiously really did want to definancialize as much as I could possibly do it. I just wanted to do without money. And I recognized that I had a sort of a generalist mindset and a kind of a, I can learn anything kind of frame of mind. And it was actually a powerful frame of mind. And I did learn a lot of stuff. but one of the most powerful things I learned from trying to do without money was how much I'm embedded in the system and how much I can't do it alone. And it gave me, you know, I totally exhausted myself over a period of many years, and you know, started to sort of re-examine why, you know, don't really think, why is it that this is so hard? And it gave me a deep appreciation for the need for community. You know, I was reading like work like sort of like Wendell Berry's novels, which I still find fascinating. You know, he's known for his essays and his kind of, you know, thoughts about, you know, agricultural systems, but his novels are fascinating, and they're, you know, they show how he took a culture to make that that work, that existing in place, and it's only really sort of worked at moments, and then has gotten sort of pulled into the vortex, or in pockets, or in, you know, places, you know, undisturbed by that vortex. But yeah, I guess I've since sort of come back to the feeling that, yeah, we're all in this together. There's no stepping out of the system, really, but there is powerful work to be done together, to evolve that system. And we can't, you know, the idea of changing the system is sort of problematic to me. I feel like it can only really be evolving, because it's so large, obviously. And so I'm just deeply interested in community now, and what we do together. And, you know, as my, you know, get older and my energy fades, it sort of becomes even more obvious to me that those sort of physical efforts, while they're wonderful, and I learned so much from that enormous physical effort that I put into trying to step out of the system. You know, I don't regret it for a second, but it's kind of led me here, you know, to be talking to you all. And yeah, I feel, you know, that the desire that you're speaking to, Aweed, is so close to my heart, and yet I kind of, yeah, in me it has a very different focus, I suppose, and I just wanted to speak to that for a moment. So yeah, thank you.
Very valuable comment from someone who's done or who's tried to do what a weed is doing. So.
Well, to be fair, I actually don't really know what a weed is doing. Like, you know, it's you may have a very, very yeah.
Do you want to share that, Aweed, what you're doing on the social culture, or whatever you're doing? And is there any support that we could give you?
Man, I already struggle with conciseness. I'm going to give this a try. I think for me, the most important thing that I'm looking at right now, and first, I really do, like, I agree with everything you said, Andy, and that these reminders are helpful, and this perspective is really helpful, because right, it's not, the idea is not like doomsday prepping and like, let's get out there off the grid, and, you know, so that I can take care of like me and mine while the world burns. It's just that I'm still like decolonizing. And so sometimes I think of things in terms of like what I need to do to liberate myself. And it's helpful to be reminded, like, okay, well, like, what do we need to do to liberate ourselves? And so that's good to hear, and I appreciate it. And yeah, I think like this could end up what I guess the path I'm on now in the near future could end up looking like a lot of different things. But, you know, at its core, what I'm trying to drive at is like, actually, Dion, like sounds like I've had a kind of some similar experiences to you. I got like a degree in sustainability management. It was this like super general curriculum, and I got out and I was like, I have no idea what, you know. I took a bunch of classes in like energy and transportation and um, uh, uh, all kinds of things. I've forgotten most of them now. And that's how important it must have been to me. But I was like, that didn't prepare me. Like it didn't help me really think deeply about this stuff. And but I've always just been like a talker and a writer, and I've always been one to like put ideas out there. And I think someone said something earlier in the call about sort of never picking up a hammer. I think maybe that was you, Jonathan.
Yeah, right.
And that's like my feeling is like, wow, I sure have a great conceptual understanding about a whole bunch of things, and I haven't done any of them. And Dion, I'd also like to teach, and I'd like to be able to back that teaching up with like some physical aptitude and like, oh, my body knows what it feels like to try to make some of these changes, not just my mind. So I think that's what a lot of it is for me. Like, even if it doesn't stick, even if I don't like end up like out there in the woods, you know, until I die or whatever, I need to know that like in this lifetime, while I had the choice, I like put some skin in the game and try to figure out how to actually do some things with my hands. And then I'll feel a bit more qualified to maybe like talk about that.
Wow, that's so great. RJ.
Just going to throw this idea out there because I think I've done some of this and never called it that. But is it possible to kind of make your own project, like a 1-year project or a 2-year project, where you say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm qualified to do it, and I'm just going and doing it. I'm going to find a place to do it, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the next year, and that's what I'm telling everybody I'm doing. And then I'll be back, you know, at some point, or I'll take it to the next step. It's not what I'm thinking is it's not necessarily a lifetime commitment, but it's a learning and experiential commitment. And I think I've done that in some ways and never called it that. And it's always seemed to work out, not necessarily the way I thought it was going to work out, but that it ended up a little bit further along than I had been before. So I'm just throwing that idea out there is, you know, just knowing you have some ability because you're driven to do it, to say, this is what I'm going to be doing. And then I'll see what I do next. It kind of keeps us away from the career mindset that I have to be doing this for 40 years and then retire, because we don't. You know, the world is constantly changing. So just that thought. I don't know what anybody thinks about that, but I personally like that idea, and I think it can work.
Yeah, because it's not like committing your life to this whole thing. It's, you know, having a commitment to do something for a certain period of time gives you that energy to go do it, and a sense that, you know, if this doesn't work out, there'll be something else, and doing this will be worthwhile in itself. So that's really great. Dion?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Awid said about feeling like you only have a shallow experience with a lot of different things and maybe have a lot of ideas, but you still want to teach. I definitely feel that way. It could be related to, in part, something I was reading on the Consilience Project website by Daniel Schmachtenberger about technology and how the technology innovations are occurring faster than generations can pass that knowledge down. So intergenerational transmission is now breaking down. I'm in a state where I'm more digitally literate than my parents because that technology didn't exist when they were young. Whereas a recent experience I had in Washington visiting the Makah Tribal Museum was talking about the history of spearfishing. That skill was passed down many generations. It was refined, weaving baskets from the bark of trees, deep knowledge on that and a culture around that practice. There's not very a deep culture around using a computer, for example, which is a technology that deeply shapes us. So that's something I'm super interested in, is our tools are eclipsing our own understanding of them. And so that could contribute to why maybe you and I have this, feeling of a shallow understanding or experience of knowledge of things, is because there really are a lot of things happening all at once, and we are trying to synthesize them. But I find I've been in this long period of exploration that feels too long, but really we're having to try to download all this information and concepts and synthesize it into action. So it's not surprising that we're struggling to embody that information really in the real world. Just one more comment is kind of related in terms of using your hands, for example, is one of the most hyper-focused times of my recent life was building clay rocket stoves with my bare hands in our property in Mount Shasta. We have 40 acres in the pine forest, and I grew up with the Shasta River, and just really, so grateful for that experience. But I was so hyper-focused. Some people mentioned ADHD early. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and I, certainly believe in that concept of diagnoses, but also I think there is maybe a concept of the hunter in a primal sense, that somebody with ADHD could be interpreted as being more of a hunter mindset, of needing to take in and respond to a lot of stimulus all at once and not focusing on any one thing too long. However, a concept in ADHD is hyperfocus. And I was building these clay rocket stoves, and I was just dialed in a way that it was so, I don't get on the computer really, sometimes, but it's just using your hands was incredible. We have a Japanese timber frame up there that we built with foot-thick clay walls, and just really cool stuff there. So yeah, the physical experience has come up a lot here, the kinesthetic. And that's what I meant with connecting my kinesthetic early life experiences. I know it's really important, but all this career stuff doesn't seem related to it. So, yep, those are my thoughts.
By the way, I'm glad you brought up the ADHD. There's two sides of ADHD. One is the one where you can take in a lot of stuff, and the other is when you're hyper-focused. So both of those things are true. And there are many people who are saying that's what ADHD people are good for, is hunting. Like we're hunters. I'm a hunter. I've always done business development. And as some people said, at some point in my career, if you can sell, you can always, if you know how to sell, you can always find something. I don't know that that's turned out to be true, because fundraising is not one of those things that I do well, but I do sell well. But I just selling myself, whoever said that, that's just very, very difficult. So, but I love all the things you're saying. Everybody's just so really great.
Shane?
Thanks. There's so much interesting stuff coming up tonight. I don't even know where I might go in the next 2 minutes, say, but definitely what you were talking about, Dion, had me thinking about yesterday I was teaching or maybe this last weekend anyway, I was teaching my 14-year-old son about plumbing. We just installed an extra toilet for my 83-year-old mother who doesn't like going upstairs or downstairs. So now we've got a toilet right over there. And, my stepfather is the same in regard to stairs. And he actually taught me the plumbing 30 years ago. And those technologies really haven't changed. I was thinking about the tools. You talked of the computer as, or the technology as tools. And I really think that, was it your comments earlier, Reid, about the necessities of life that all got outsourced, that others provided and then compelled you to participate in their game. And like plumbing is one of those, right? You got to get rid of the junk. And it's ancient technology, you know? Some of the rules haven't changed. Like shit still doesn't flow uphill, right? Except if you plug it in. Yeah, so I guess I just wonder about, you know, some of what the sort of hyper technological rate of change in the last 50 years, which is my lifetime. You know, I got an early computer when I was young, and I never actually learned to use it, which must have been terribly disappointing for my old man, who probably saw this as the future and also spent a lot of money on this thing that I played ping pong on, right? and no doubt along the way I've gone, God, I could have made a career, but I feel like learning how not to get burned while making a good fire is still really important. You know, it doesn't get valued though, right? So this is I think part of what our conversation for me is revolved around. Like, why the hell am I not valued for this service of bringing hickory nuts from Alps Road to Lancaster Street? I mean, it's going to take the squirrels years to do that if I don't do it. I just wonder about, you know, like how much opportunity there is within the system to cultivate reevaluations. I'm struggling with that when I think about, you know, is there livelihood here? Can I? And you know, I've got lots of inspiration from these conversations and I continue to do so. And I don't really have that much to say about it, but I'm going to keep trying to get people to plant weeds in their front gardens because that's good for bees and, you know, the exotic tropical things that they have to bring in the winter aren't. So what makes sense, you know? Anyway, that's where I'm at. Thank you all for for sharing yourselves this evening.
Wonderful. Andy?
Oh, I love it so much, Shane. Yeah, I don't know. I have so many like thoughts running around in my brain, like connected from parts of the conversation. And I mean, one of them is that you know, I have ADHD as well, and you know, not the not the hyperactive kind, but the inattentive type. And you know, it's definitely a something of a handicap, but it's also a blessing. And you know, I just think about the sort of strange kind of paths that I've taken, and those moments where I felt hyper focused that you were describing, Dion, like, yeah, and really similar kind of response actually. Like I was really into timber framing for many years, like traditional Morrison tenon timber framing, and I had a mentor, you know, who'd done it as a career, which was, you know, amazing, but it never really worked out. And yet like I experienced this such an intense joy of focus and craft and yeah, just like putting up these big, like satisfying structures. Just a fantastic experience, and yet, like, I always seem to move on from those learning kind of deep learning experiences without really ever having gone deep into them. And yet I'm starting to learn to appreciate that. We've mentioned the word generalist a few times, and I actually really want to kind of not just sort of mildly kind of stand up for the generalist kind of approach, but like really stand up for it, because I think there's a connectivity that you can develop. Like I realize that I can see connections that that weren't at all apparent to me, simply because I actually have been very, very academic, head-based creative person, and I've also been extremely like body-based, and there's just a world of connections that are sort of just made just from those two sort of extremes of focus and in themselves, and it creates something that wasn't there before. And so I want to sort of like back everyone up if they're feeling like they haven't gone deep into the things that they've gotten interested in, and their kind of interest has moved on. Like I think it's fine. I think it's so human, and I think it's like it's going somewhere if you believe in that. Like yeah, I mean, I don't really know whether my kind of the niche that I'm trying to craft is really going somewhere, but I'm going to believe in it. And but yeah, it's precisely tailored to all of these kind of this strange mix of skills that I have. And I think it's kind of like I think people can do that, and I think we need that. Like I don't know, what is it? I feel a sort of almost a fierce desire to kind of defend that generalist experience that so many of us have had, and especially if we have sort of a ADHD type brains. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Well, that's really great, and actually that's where I'd love for us all to be left, is digging more deeply into all these things that have been challenging us during the course of this conversation. So I really appreciate it, and we're at the hour or a little bit past. If anybody wants to say something just to be complete, we can go around, and if people need to jump off, feel free.
And Dion, I wanted to tell you about something that I had thought about, just kind of came into my mind. So can you stick around for a few minutes? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. So what, should we just go and say a word?
Yeah.
Happy. Andy?
Yeah, satisfied. Such a good conversation. Thank you.
Pass it on.
Sorry, I'll pass it to Oweed.
Hungry, realizing I haven't eaten today, but also hungry to put some of these beautiful ideas into the world. Thanks, everybody. Kim.
Thanks, Saweed. Grateful. Mine. RJ?
Kind of joy and lasting skills that we can carry with us.
Who do you want to pass it to?
Thanks. I always forget that. Dion?
Dang it. Divergent, maybe. Okay. Shane.
Thanks. I really just want to say thanks to Jonathan and Victoria Toya, for your great facilitation and for just, keeping this this space for us. It's lovely.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
our pleasure.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
really fulfilling. So we appreciate you all, and this will get posted. You'll see where the video is in case people want to review it. But thank you, and we look forward to next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Well,
you.
we're, happy to stay if you're interested.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Dion, what I reflected on when you were talking about building a clay house, on your property, I saw this video of a group of people. Oh, somebody has a business where they train people in how to build houses out of mud,
Right,
with domes
rammed
and
earth
well, this one was one of those with where you make that, it's a dome. It's a
Mhm.
dome and ends up being
Oh, yeah, like cob.
cob, maybe it's
Mhm.
cob. Yeah, it was cob. And they make a living, training people how to do it. Like over the course of the week, people get to participate in it. And you love to train people. You love to get your hands in there, and you could, if you needed to, and there wasn't anybody else, you have a great time. There's so many people that want to learn that, and it just occurred to me, if your family has a property with 41 acres, have you ever thought of building an eco village? Like, you could build, what they do on this place is they say, if you will give us your land, we will come and do a course on your land and show you how to
Well, it's funny.
have a group build you a house on your land. And you could do it and create 20 homes, and we could, talk to you about how do you create community, how do you
Right.
create an eco village, and there's lots to learn about it, but you could end up having 20 houses on your property.
Right. Yeah, we're currently so worried about fire, which would be terrible, but I have faith that the landscape would come back. So the house was actually built through a class. So we're in, near Mount Shasta, and up in Ashland, just over the border into Oregon, there's a company called EcoNest that does these homes. It's Japanese timber frame with the walls are clay straw, and foot thick. So that was actually built with a class. We all built it together.
It was that, we saw their video. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then actually the property next door to us, which is maybe 70 acres, is an outdoor school called Headwaters. Pretty well known here, at least in Santa Cruz and much of California. And yeah, they during the classes, I took one class there, and we built a traditional shelter out of like cedar bark and kind of a they have a big roundhouse on the property. So they have this whole village kind of, but it's just for the classes. It's basic camping facilities for the classes. But I absolutely have thought about that. My parents are both like 65, and I don't know how open they are to that concept, but I mean, we want to have more people on the land. It's just it's just so crucial for young people and, everyone to experience that, to walk down to the river and just listen. It's just water and wind through the leaves. And then the frog jumps on your foot, and people in Santa Cruz or San Francisco have never had that kind of experience. And so it's always in the back of my mind that I want to find ways to share that with more people. And so absolutely, I'm interested in kind of that eco village concept.
Now, the other thing that you might check out is a group called Genesis Group. Regenesis Group. .com. And I just finished a course, the regenerative practitioner that they teach. So it's for people who are consulting to development projects or have a piece of land and they want to develop it regeneratively, using all of the techniques. And when you read their website and what they've done, it's miraculous. It's like, it's actually, it's bringing in the community to source, you know, what is the story of this place? What does this place want? How would our needs as whoever owns the land to do X, Y, Z, how could it work with the community so that we come out with something where it is going to evolve. It's not a static thing that was built in time. It's something where the people who built it, you know, the community, everyone gains the tools of regenerative thinking, decision making, working together and evolving their understanding of nature, and how we as humans, you know, without humans, nature is all, you know, can't do certain things that we can do for nature. So there's, so all of those things, our son-in-law was an environmental teacher, you know, my daughter and son-in-law met on a farm, kind of a retreat center. You know, you could create a retreat center or something like that if you wanted. And they live in Portland. And so, you know, there's so many people there that want to live that way and do that, you know. They're looking for where they love the area, they love the geography, you know, otherwise they might come back east, but the geography is totally different. Yeah, so that's why they're there. And they went there because they wanted something new and different, and they just went there and found, you know, things to do. And now they're working for themselves, and our daughter does website design, and he does administrative bookkeeping kind of stuff, but he's been an educator, an environmental educator, and I don't know if he's planning to go back to that. I don't know. I know there's a far place between Ashland and Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did go through Portland recently, and you know, my mom is an evaluator for like educational programs, and she had a colleague who worked at Portland State who was working on green roofs, you know, and so got to see that. Yeah, I've always wanted to spend more time in Portland because, you know, they're well known for kind of urban planning things they've done, and they have a green zone around, you know, the perimeter of the city and all these cool things. And yeah, it's really interesting stuff. But I'll look into Regenesis. I think I came across that, but didn't even really look at it much. But yeah, some great ideas. It's been a great meeting. I really enjoyed it and deeply appreciate.
Fabulous to work with. I mean, whatever you end up doing, people will be, you know, you're just so great to be with.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, excited to, you know, I've just found pretty much every meeting I could on, you know, Earth Regenerators. I'm just trying to
soak it all in.
Yeah.
By the way, we want to tell you what we're doing, just in case you're interested. You know, your background is kind of like, you know, in sustainability in the built environment and planning and stuff. So there's a financial tool called CPACE, Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
So you know that commercial property owners won't upgrade to green standards unless it's profitable, right? And right now I mean, for the most people, they'd have to put money into it and wait for 10, 15 years to get the return. And they don't want to do that. They're never going to do that. So this tool allows them to put all of the costs on the property tax bill as a special assessment, which gets amortized over 30 years or something like, you know, and the architects, the engineers will design it so it's cash flow positive immediately, so that the savings are paying for the each payment period by period. And if they have 10 commercial tenants, they can share the payments with them, so they don't have to bear all the costs, because they would never do it if they had to. where tenants are paying their own electric rates. They're going to pay a little, they're going to get, return. It's off balance sheet. There's all kinds of financial benefits. So, where we thought we could make the biggest difference, it was decarbonizing buildings using this tool, which has to be approved by law, by the state, the county, whoever taxes, the municipality, the county. So it's a long process, but the even longer process is, well, once those laws are passed, how does anybody find out about it? There's nobody who's responsible for marketing it. It's just the town's responsibility to pass it. And then it's supposed to not cost the public anything because it's all private money. And the thing about the special assessment, I don't know if you know what that means. I don't know if you've ever learned that. And well, let's say you have a house with a sidewalk in front of it. The way that the local government pays for the sidewalk is that they put a little charge on your tax bill for every period, and whoever lives there has that little charge on their tax bill because you happen to have a sidewalk in front of you. So that's how they pay for it. Or if you're part of a sewer system, the people that need the sewer system aren't going to pay up front. They're going to finance it over the long term, and whoever is participating pays a little bit. So it makes it really manageable, and there's no debt. Like, property owners not going to take a big debt to go green because they want to spend their money where they want to spend their money. So there's all these aspects to it that make it like, really, property owners saying we can have our cake and eat it too. We don't have to use any of our own money. It's very reasonable. It's going to pay for itself. It's kind of self-liquidating. There's like all these, and then they get to be heroes, because they're doing something sustainable. They're going to get better employees. They're going to get better tenants because those people are looking for places that they, most businesses have a hard time recruiting. But if you're working in a sustainable building, it's a lot easier, right? And you're not going to go work for somebody who's leaking energy. It's just like, it's just inconsistent who you are. So this is a big new industry that is just being managed by the financial sector, and they haven't even thought of how to expand the market by using community. So that's what we're doing, is that we're helping these towns who are interested in their buildings going green, but what can they do? They're going to say, you got to spend the money. So today we had a meeting with one of the heads of an elected official from a town and their Chamber of Commerce, the board of the Chamber of Commerce. And the board is going to work with us to create a strategy for how are they going to find the first couple of projects, how are they going to get the word out, and it's all trusted advisors. Like, property owners will not listen to me. They're going to listen to the person that they want to listen to. And that person has to be educated, like a lawyer or an accountant, or a tax attorney or something, to say, yeah, this is real. Nobody knows about it, but this is what, we're called to do, is to create resilient communities. And the first way is to start generating economic development, because you bring in hundreds of millions of dollars when you have some kind of critical mass, a town center, whatever. Not Portland has it. Oregon has passed it. I don't, that it's got to, whoever Ashland has to pass it, or whoever collects the taxes in Oregon would have to do that. But it's the kind of career that you can get paid like a financial professional, which is a lot if you do it through the right things. But it's really about decarbonizing. And we want to make this viral. We want this to go viral so that children will talk with their grandparents and say, I understand there's this new way. You can't say that you don't have the money because it's there, and I can tell you how it works, because it's like, it's a huge breakthrough that we've discovered that private buildings can take advantage of the way that the public sector has paid for everything over time. They put it on the tax bill and it runs with the property. When you sell it, you don't take the debt with you. And amortize it and make sure it's self-liquidating. And you have to get the bank to sign off if you have a mortgage. Now, this is not, I don't think, no, Oregon doesn't have it for residential, but it's only commercial right now. But it's like, it's such a great career or place to be independent. We can introduce you to the people in Portland that have, that are looking to develop that Portland market for this thing. I don't know. They might have some kind of glitch in their law. I don't know. But it's happening kind of state by state and jurisdiction by jurisdiction. And all the financial people think when we ask them, how do you think the community could help you expand the market for this? Because it's like they've just that much. And there's that much need, right? So, they said, yeah, we've got to have people go out and go to the states that don't have the legislation and the communities. Well, they don't understand that the legislation is in a lot of places. Nobody's using it.
Yeah.
Because nobody's,
Well,
interested.
there's all kinds of things. One is a lot of people just have a block about finance.
Right.
And whenever that
Including
word
me.
comes up, people
Yeah, me too.
go, wait a minute, that's not my area.
Hmm.
But it turns out to be quite fascinating. But it is also very challenging.
It's very challenging. The people don't like to change.
Yeah.
And I discovered that I have quite a disdain for the people who do commercial development. So I end up being insulting to them when they don't understand or they're not. I mean, I insulted somebody, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Said, like, you don't know me well enough to say that.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to let you know that there are these things. Finance doesn't have to be scary, even though, I don't like it particularly and I'm scared of it myself, but everything that has to be done to make a better world has to be financed.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I just bought a book on finance because I realized it was a weakness of mine. It was coming up in almost every conversation and just crucial. One of my mentors that I just worked with, for a couple weeks is working in water finance. And yeah, I found just every time I tried to read that information, I just couldn't take it in. And so yeah, I bought a book on finance, by a Harvard professor and just, wanted to just, be a little bit more literate, at least recognize the terms and start to create a map in my head of what it's all about and how things work.
Right.
And of course, you have to be very careful about not buying into a lot of the ridiculous stuff. I mean, economists have been talking about how it's not economically profitable to save the world, at this point, because it's going to really have an impact 50 years, 100 years down the road, and we have to discount that value because it's not today. I mean,
Yeah. Well, somebody I've been following is Nate Hagens, and he, similar to Daniel Smachtenberger in talking about kind of the meta crisis, he said that, we don't price a barrel of oil with the externalities in mind. It's so, and then we base all of our other prices on these kinds of things. It's just, the prices are wrong. So the whole, what we call profitable would not be profitable. All these business ideas that are, in Silicon Valley and all these startups and kind of seemingly non-essential services are profitable because the prices are wrong in the first place. So really interesting stuff. So you said the financial tool is called CPACE?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stands for
C-PACE.
commercial
put
property
it in.
assessed clean energy.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just look that up, and there's a national organization that we're members of called Pace Nation.
Mm.
We keep trying to push the envelope. It was developed to help buildings go green. And then I tried to, propose the idea that we could use it for ecosystem restoration as well, because the same
Yeah.
mechanism of putting the financing on the property. And so, it would make a lot of sense, but we're having so much trouble just getting people to kind of buy the simple stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Is that your phone?
It is. It's
Yeah.
just
Okay.
a reminder.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be cool. And you know how that's going to work. You develop a piece of property to do something like grow food, and you have to design that project so that it can pay the long-term amortization. But there probably would be like a 7-year holiday that you're only paying for the interest, or something like that. It's going to be much more challenging, and you have to have different kinds of people doing the underwriting of those projects who understand farms and who understand the value of organic, agriculture, or tree forests, or growing nuts.
Right.
Or,
And it really seems like it's the next generation that's going to figure this out, because we're talking to this group, Regen Foundation, that's using the blockchain to develop these carbon and eco tokens, and then market them to companies that are trying to look good. So, trying to get people in the conventional economy to recognize this stuff is really amazingly difficult. But really, thanks so much. We should log off and let you go. And
yes, delightful,
right,
delightful.
right. Anytime you want to communicate some more, just let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm deeply grateful. And it sounds like you're doing some amazing work, and I want to really get involved in similar ways. So yeah, thanks again, and we'll be in touch.
Right.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.